right, guys, let's see what we can do the next little bit. There are a couple of things I wanted to share with you, and then we're going to look at our textbook. That's going to be our next agenda, and then we'll get to Unit 1. Because tonight is a little bit of orientation, but we're also learning some things too that you may see later. Number one that I want to do, I've not ever done this before, but when I teach this class, most adults tell me they struggle with math because haven't been in school in a long time. I just struggle with math. The course is a 75-hour course, and let's see how delicately I can say this. The commission says, here's 75 hours and what you're supposed to teach, and spend this amount of time on this subject, that subject. They don't give us any time to spend on math. And here's what they say to us, work it in. Now guys, I'm telling you, we've got a lot to talk about through here, and it's going to be hard for me to work in the math, but we will do math in here. But you're going to have to study math on your own also, and I'll send you homework home where you can practice, but you're going to have to really put a big effort on your own. It's just one of those things. We don't have time to teach basic math in this course. So I will work it in, we'll do math, I'll try to get as much math done as we can throughout the course, but if you start feeling like I'm not spending enough time on it, it's because I don't have the time allocated to do it. So what I've done, this is the thing that I just was thinking about. I put together a little math course that I'm going to offer on Tuesday nights. Now I know you're going to be here Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you might not want to come back, but I do think there might be a need for it. So, and I'll get Megan to email you this, but I'm going to offer 5 math nights, and it'll be on Tuesdays from 6:30 to 9. So it'll be 2.5 hours. Now, I am going to have to charge for it because I'll be teaching and working, but I'm going to include a math book. And the math book is really a good math book. Let's see if I got one over here. I'm going to include this math book that's about $35, but the course I'm going to charge $95. So that's not even $5 an hour for me to open and turn the lights on here, but I got to charge it something. And this book will come with it. This is an excellent math book. And so I'm going to break it down into 5 sessions, and we'll go over area problems, we'll go over calculating property tax, commission, finance, and appraising, and then the last night we're together, we'll just do some review because it'll be getting close to your final. So if you want to sign up for it, it's up to you if you want to. I'm just making it available. I'll have Megan send you this out, and you'll have to register with her because I'll have to order the math books to make sure we have enough. So it's just another opportunity if you want it. If you don't, that's fine with me too, but you might need a little one-on-one and a smaller group of folks that's talking about it. It might be something that you want. I've had students say they would really love that. So that's what we're doing.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So the course is $95 and the book is $35?
No, the book's included.
Oh, and the $95?
Yeah, that's why I'm having to charge a little bit, because the book is a $35 book. And so it's going to be 12.5 hours, so that's about $5 an hour that I'm charging for the course. And so, you know, that's I know it's extra money, that you will be putting out, but in the whole scheme of things, that's not a lot of money for what the course is going to be. So if you want it, you'll let us know. The other thing that I'm trying new this time, and I'm just trying, you know what, guys, I hope you believe this, because I wouldn't lead you astray. Every time I start a class, and I've been teaching this a long time, I reread every unit like you're doing it. And it sounds kind of crazy. I must be OCD or something. Something's wrong with me, because I read the unit every time with you. It keeps me on my toes. It gives me excitement, and maybe I'll see another way that I can present it. And so I'm reading it with you, so I know what you're going through. The other thing is, we get handouts a lot in here, and we give homework about every night. So I'll send you home with homework on Monday night. I'll send you home with math on Wednesday, not much on Wednesday because you're right back here on Thursday. And then Thursday I'll send you home with a little bit more because we do know you need to be reading, so we're not going to overload you. Well, here's what I have found, and it's been a little, it's bugged me about how to handle this. And so I'm going to try this and see how it works. When I give out homework in a class or we have a quiz, if somebody missed a class, here's what I hear. Here's what happens. Miss Secor, I didn't get my homework. I wasn't here Monday. Will you get me my homework? And I'm thinking, really? And it's interruptive. And I go find it because I want to please and make you all happy. Well, I'm trying to get, it's at the point it's driving me a little nuts. So here's what I've done. I'm going to try giving you all your work in a week at a time. I'm going to give you your first week's homework and quizzes tonight. And so what that means is, and this is, I know it's going to look old-timey, old-fashioned to you, but it's the best I could come up with, and it's just an idea. And we can kind of test and see how we like it. But for class 1, I've got a math little quiz, and I've got a quiz. And then class 2, see, I'm going to separate them for you. Class 2, I've got a quiz and some math. Class 3, I've got separator. I've got a take-home quiz, a little more questions, and some math. So I'm going to send you math about every time. So I'm thinking some of you might be reading ahead and you might want to do some work ahead. But at least you've got it, and it won't be stopping and finding what somebody missed, and this will be something that you'll have. Now, you will have to bring it with you every class meeting because that's when I'll go over and review some of the questions. And so I'm going to put that responsibility on you instead of me. So I hope that will be good. Next week, Monday, I'll send you home with second week. My ultimate goal is to have a notebook with everything in it, but this is a little baby step for me, trying to get it ready.
I will throw in there the quizzes that she hands out is a vital bit of information because it mirrors more of the actual exam than what the quizzes gives.
Yeah.
The quizzes that she hands out are more reality to the exam instead of just by the book, literally that's in the book.
Yeah.
So that is a vital thing to review and go over each and every one.
Yeah, the quizzes, they're helpful, aren't they? And especially if we talk about it, I can give you a little more information and explain things more thoroughly. So it's meant to help you. And so I'm going to try those 2 things. So you guys are going to be my guinea pigs this time. We're going to have a math class if you want it, and we're going to have our homework a week in advance. So and that'll be good too if we have to miss a night because of the weather. At least you've got the work you can be looking ahead at. All right, the next thing that I love to do, I want to introduce you to your book. A lot of you didn't get your book until tonight, and so I want to go through this book and explain and show you your book. I would love it if your book looked like my book. Golly, I've got everything. I've got writing. Saturday I was teaching a class, and I turned to the page, and I had every line underlined, stars, asterisks, highlight, and I thought, I wonder what's important there, everything. And so, but I do enjoy books, and I would like to introduce the book to you. So let's start at the beginning, the inside flap of your book. If you'll look, you've got some math formulas. And so the left-hand column, you've got area. And so we're going to talk about area math, which means square footage. How many square feet are in this parcel of land? How many acres are in this parcel of land? Or there were 10 acres in this land and it sold for $2,000 per acre. How much did it sell for? So we're going to talk about some area. Your right-hand column, this week we'll talk about property tax. We'll talk about that probably Thursday night. And then the finance math we'll talk about after we're halfway through. And we'll talk about commission math when we get into Unit 8. So there's some math there. Go to the back flap of your book. So it's a nice little reference for a quick look at your formulas. Top left, you do have to know how to convert a decimal to a percent. Now, some of us, that might sound like it's easy, but I can tell you it's not easy for everybody. So we're gonna have to talk about that and making sure that you're good to go on it. For example, look at the top, it says 0.73, and then to make that 0.73 a percentage, you're really just multiplying by 100, which means you're moving your decimal 2 places to the right. That's what you're doing. Well, here's the importance of it, one reason. If you get a math question and the answer comes, if the question is, what percentage is this? Whatever the question is, what percentage? If you do the calculation, it's going to come out in a decimal format. So let's say the answer came out 0.73. That's not a percentage. That's a decimal version. Are you following me on that? Your answer, huh?
And that will be an answer.
And that will be an answer.
That will be a choice.
That will be a choice. So the question will be, what's the percentage? Letter A might say 0.73. Letter B might say 73%. Guys, 73% is the percentage. 0.73 is the decimal version of it. Now, so that's, I mean, I know that sounds silly, but that's how we have to know, what's the difference. We will talk about capital gains taxation later toward the end of the course. We're going to talk about discount points. But everyone, discount points is a financial term, and it's interest. It's interest the lender is charging when they make a loan, and it's called discount points. We're going to talk about profit and loss. We're going to talk about, excuse me, seller net. In other words, how much does the seller net? How much does the seller need to sell their house for in order for them to net a certain amount of money? So those are some examples of some math. Now we're going to talk about appraising math. We're going to talk about cash on cash, leveraging. We're going to talk about cash flow. And I promise you, I will make it as simple as I can. I promise you I will. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be simple, but I'm going to try to get it down to as basic of a level as I can do for you. But I really try to think simply about it. All right, let's go kind of back from the back of the book forward. If you stop on page 822, of course you're going to have an index. And so 822 is your index. If you're looking for a topic, come back here and it'll send you to the page where you need to go. If you go up to page, I need my glasses for this, 808, go to page 808. You've got the answer key to the unit test questions. So every unit that you read has questions at the end of the unit. So every unit you'll be quizzed on what you read. The comment came up about those unit questions. I've had students say, Ms. Secor, if I can answer these questions pretty well, am I good to go? Probably not. I mean, you need more than that is what I'm trying to say. The unit questions, sure, read them and answer those questions, but they're testing you on what did you read in that unit. And so it is important, but it ain't going to be enough. You know, we're really going to be doing more than that. All right, so let's move back forward a little bit. Go with me, if you will, to page 783. Of course, you're going to have a glossary. Guys, there are even, you can go online to Amazon, or I like to go to Barnes & Noble, but there are lots of things that you can buy real estate related. I have a real estate dictionary that I like to look at from time to time. If I forget a word, I'll just go to that. This glossary isn't going to have everything in it, but it'll have most of what you need in it. All righty, let's keep going forward. I'm going to show you something else. Go to page 767. And you see study tips and comprehensive practice exam. You know what, if you haven't been back to school in a while, you might be stumped on how to get yourself organized and how to study. And so looking for ideas, reading over this might be helpful. And so they've given you some ideas. And if you'll go to page 770, you've got a comprehensive exam. And so this, of course, is going to be after we've gone through the whole lecture. But it is broken down into certain topics. And so from time to time, you can come back here and look at some of these questions. And if you get to page 780, you've got some math in this section. Now, I will come back here with you to do some of this math. We'll do some of it as we have time. But that's a comprehensive little test that I've heard is really good. Students told me they really thought that was a good one. So let's keep moving forward. And I want you to go, let me find the page number, 719. This is a math content, the subject matter in this textbook. So as we go through this, it does talk to you about how to use your calculator. So you know you need a calculator in this course. So we're not going to allow you to use your cell phones as your calculator. You need a calculator. And everyone, the ones that I buy to use, I just use simple calculator. So you can get calculators at the dollar store, just something simple. In other words, I mean, you could use more complicated ones, but you can't have a calculator in here that you can program in the formula, or one that has formulas pre-programmed, because you're going to be tested. You need to remember certain formulas. So you won't be able to use it in a testing center. And when you come take your final here, you need a calculator, because we're not online. When you go schedule your exam at the testing center, they do have a calculator on screen with the computer, but most of us like to have our own anyway. And they won't let you take the test if you've got a calculator that, maybe some of those financial calculators that have the formulas programmed in, you can't use those. So we need to get used to learning some formulas. All righty, let's talk to you. So introducing that. Page 725, you've got some area information, measurement problems. You've got 2 of those on your final exam, 2 area problems. And so it's square footage, rectangles, squares, right triangles. If you'll go to page 731, you've got fractions and decimals and percentages. I want you to stop at page 735. On the bottom of 735, you see what is the X-bar method. Everyone, this is a hoot to me, because I don't get it. I've been teaching this course for almost 20 years. This is a formula, it's a 3-in-1 formula that we're going to use a lot. And if you practice it and catch on to it, you're going to absolutely love it. It makes your math easier, doesn't it, Terrell? It makes it easy. Well, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've always called this my T-bar, because that's how we taught it for 20 years. And when they revised this textbook, they said, well, we want to call it the X-bar now. And I'm thinking, I'm not getting that. There's a big X because you're multiplying there. So I may call it the T-bar still, because it's a T with multiplying and dividing in it. But in the new revised book, they said we're going to call it the X-bar now. Guys, it's algebra. But when we say algebra, it scares most of us. Algebra is kind of scary. But when we start working on this, we are solving for one thing or the other. But when we do it in this T, it really makes it simple. Let me give you an example. If you had, if somebody said, what percentage is 3/4? Now, we memorized that. I remember 4th grade. Didn't we learn fractions and percentages? Seems like we did. We used to. And so you memorized, that's 0.75. And you memorize, well, if it's a percentage, we move that over, and it's 75%. Is everybody following me? Just something simple to start out with. Well, let me show you how that works. If you didn't know how to get that, 3 would be the numerator. 4 is going to be down here because it's the total, it's the whole thing, it's the bigger number out of the 2, so it's our denominator. If you're trying to convert a fraction to a decimal, you divide. So you put in the calculator the numerator divided by the denominator. Let's just play around with this a minute. I do have a reason for bringing this up. So if we put 3 in the calculator and divide it by 4, it comes out 0.75. Now here's what I hear from students. I like that formula, Ms. Secor, but here's where I struggle. I don't know which number goes on top and which number goes on the bottom. And I really believe in being as basic as we can. If you had this number and you didn't know where to put them to try to solve for the problem, the little number's always on top. The big number's always on the bottom if we're doing this 3 in 1. Little number goes in the calculator first, followed by the big number. Even getting that basic, if I can help you, little number in first, big number in second. Now let me give you an example. You could have an area problem, and the area problem might say something like this. 3/18 of this land cannot be used because it's reserved for a road. What is the percentage of the land that cannot be used for a road? 3/18. Don't we need to know, figure out how to get 3/18? So we're going to say, well, 3 goes in divided by 18, and it'll tell me that it's 166 in a decimal form, which means 16.6% of the land cannot be used because it's being reserved for roads. So that's why you need to know about fractions and decimals. So it ain't going to be just 3/4 or 1/2. It's going to be something that you can't just do in your head. And if you know how to set it up, 3 divided by 18 will give you. Guys, here's what this is saying. Do this with me if you've got your calculator. If you don't, you can use your phone tonight. Put 3 in your calculator and divide by either 0.166 or 16.6%. Either way you want to do it. 3 divided by, did you get 18? You should have gotten 18. 3 is 16.6% out of that big number. Multiply, clear your calculator. 18 times 0.166. Now it's 16666, so the numbers don't come out exactly. You should get 3. So in other words, these numbers interact with each other. If you're double checking yourself, you can either divide or multiply. That's all you do in this formula. And I've even told my students, golly, if you're in a bind and you're trying to figure out how to work the math and you divide and it doesn't work, then turn around and multiply. Because that's all you do in this formula, either divide or multiply. If I were looking for a calculator, I would make sure I get one with the percent key. Guys, hitting the percent key, in my opinion, is way better than trying to figure out where the decimal goes. Because I think that kind of slows me down, and we're going to be working kind of quickly when we're taking our test. I didn't tell you that. I told you that you've got 112 questions, and I told you you've got 3 hours. Guys, that's 1.6 minutes per question. Now, some of the math's going to take longer than that, and a lot of the questions you should get through just like this. Maybe not the math, but questions. So you're going to have to learn to pace yourself so that you can get through the exam so that you can finish it. So anyway, we're going to talk about that formula. This is a 3-in-1 formula we'll start talking about on Thursday. We'll talk about when we do our real estate commission math. We'll talk about when we do our finance math. We'll talk about when we do some appraising. This is going to be a 3-in-1 formula that I'm going to show you a lot of, and if you catch on to it, it's going to make your life way easier. But some students do take a minute or 2 to catch on to it. You know, it's just kind of getting used to where to plug in things. All right, so let's finish on in the textbook. page 738. Percentage problems, looky there, they got the big X, 738. 739, you see your big X, that's our little T-bar. Go to the next page, how do I get interest? You see that 3 and 1, the big, they're gonna make me call it the X bar, because that's all I see is a big X. So there you go, look on page 741, there you go, we're gonna be using this 3 and 1. Next page, how do we determine profit? You're gonna be using the same 3 and 1. Next page, 743, how do we come up with the value for income producing property? That's appraising. You're going to be using the same 3 and 1. So I'm not saying all of your math will use this, but a whole bunch of your math will. So we're going to do lots of different math, and I'm going to guide you to the best of my ability. And as time allows, page 752, you've got math problems at the end of this math unit. So you've got plenty of math in your textbook that you can kind of look around and practice. And then I'll be sending you home with math. By the way, I didn't tell you this. I made this decision a couple of classes ago. Most people who are trying to do the work in here, like the math, when you go home, most people want to know if they're getting it right. Most people, if you get stumped, you want to know how to get out of it and figure it out, don't you? So every math I send you home with, I'm sending you the solutions and the answer. Now, it only helps you if you're really trying to do the math. If you look at it and go, oh, let me look at how to do it, that's not going to help you. So it's there because I know it's more beneficial for the people who are really trying. I'm stuck, how do I get out of this? Or do I have it right? So I'll send you home in your packet the math that I'm sending you. I'm going to have the solutions there for you too. Questions? All righty, let's go kind of forward. Let's stop, if you will, on page 688. We will be talking about square footage and how to measure. What you'll be measuring as a real estate agent is going to be houses. You're not going to go out and measure a lot to figure out how many acres are on it, even though your area math is going to be acreage and land and that sort of thing. But you're going to be learning how to measure houses. And so this little section in your text gives you information about it. It's only a handful of pages, but this really comes up in lecture in maybe Unit 8, that we'll probably come back here and make sure that we see how to get square footage. If you move a little bit to the page prior to that, you see Appendix B, and it's about agent safety. I have a brochure that I'll be passing out to you when it gets time for that. It's a agent safety brochure that the Real Estate Commission has put together. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we really have to be careful where we go and all that. So this is just common sense stuff that I'll give you that brochure when we get there. Let's go to page 614. This is Kevin's page, 614. This is Appendix A. This is your license, law, and commission rules. Now, we will get through all of this, I promise you, even before the lecture comes up. In fact, tonight, I'm going to show you a license rule tonight that's in your reading in Unit 1, and it's back here in this unit. So when I tell you that we will have learned it before we actually come back to this section, I promise you that we will. So, but this is the license law section, and I do want to talk to you about something in this section tonight, though. And so if you don't mind going to page 638 and 639. And you see, this is a real estate licensing booklet. It's a booklet within your textbook. Everyone, this is a licensing booklet. If you were to call the Real Estate Commission, they would send you this booklet. It literally was a booklet that they just happened to incorporate in this textbook. For example, go over to 640 and 641. Look at the very bottom. You see page 1 and 2? See that? Go to the next page. You see 3 and 4? Those are the booklet page numbers. So that's telling me they really didn't think through, because, you know, it's in our textbook. Those numbers shouldn't be there, but those are literally the booklet page numbers. So when you look at the table of contents on page 640, when they tell you to go to page 3, they're meaning 3 within this little section. Is everybody following me on that? So that is a tiny bit just a tiny bit confusing. Look with me on page 642. I talked to you about your provisional broker license, didn't I? Look at the middle of page 642. We've already talked about provisional broker. We talked about broker already. And top of 643, we talked about the broker in charge, the figurehead at each real estate company that will be responsible for supervising you. And so we haven't talked about the other yet, but we will. And license qualifications, you do have to pass this course, but you also have to be 18 years old to receive a real estate license. I had a young man take my course some years back, and I think he was about 19 when he took my course, and he said, "Can my sister come take your course?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "Well, she's only 16. She can take the course, but she can't get a license yet. You know, if she's interested in the real estate, she can come take the course. The commission isn't going to issue her a license until she's of legal age, which is 18. I want you to go with me over to page 646 and 647. Now, this is a section that you might want to be looking at. It's about your application process. And so on 646, they're giving you an overview of your application. On 647, they're telling you where to go to get that application started. I highly recommend that you go ahead and play around with this. You will not be able to complete your application online. You probably can't even get very far yet because you haven't even gotten through here. But I would like for you to go ahead and open it up at least, get your name in there the way that you're supposed to. I have a motive to this, and it's on page 650. Page 650, you see the criminal background, record check company. This is the only resource that the commission will accept for your criminal background check. So if you go online to open up your application, then you should be able to find the link to this and go ahead and get your criminal background check. Guys, it all hinges on when you finish this course, we want you to be able to schedule your state exam. And if you have to wait around on getting your criminal background check, that's just more days you wait before you take the exam. So we're going to advise you to go ahead and order your criminal background check. It's good for 180 days. So if you don't pass the course the first time and you do want to come back, that criminal check that you got is going to still be good. Now, if you've lived in North Carolina most of the last 7 or so years, it might only cost you $20, $22. Do y'all know if you got yours? 24. If you've lived in other states, it is going to cost you a little more. New York is the most expensive that I've heard of, but it's you got to have it. You've got to have this criminal background check in order to submit your application, and we just think the sooner you get that behind you, it's one less thing to do when you're ready to take the state exam. Go with me, if you will, to page 652 and 653. They're giving you some information about the license examination after you pass this course. And so they're letting you know about taking the exam, taking the sections. Let me mention this. When you apply to take the license exam, I mentioned to you that it's two parts, didn't I? There's a national test and there's a state test, questions, set of questions. You must take them at the same exam time. So you can't just say, I want to go take this one or that one. The commission says you have to take both of them. And you need to pass both of them. If you pass both of them, the testing center will send that to the commission and they'll review your application again and then send you your license if everything looks good. If you fail both of them, you have to take both of them again at the same appointment. You cannot pick and choose to take one at a time. Every time you take your exam, it's $164, everybody. The $100 goes to the commission, it's application fee. So if you fail the exam and you want to apply again like a quick way with the testing center, then the commission's going to say, we still want our $100. And the exam is $64. Let's say you take the two-part exam and you pass one part. Well, then, of course, you only have to take the one that you failed. It's $164 even then. So, gotta pass both parts. Does everybody understand that? If you fail both, you have to go back and take both. If you fail one part, you only go back and take the part that you failed. They're not gonna make you take both parts again if you passed one.
So here, the passing rate 75% for our end of class exam. Is it 75% on the board too?
Mm-mm.
No, that's,
Good question. You have to score 75% here. They lowered the score that is required a couple of years ago because the passing rate across the state's not good, to be honest with you. So the commission lowered. The national part of the exam, you have to score a 71, I believe. The state, you have to score 72 and a half. So what that means is, national part, you've got 100 questions. They count 1 point each, so you can miss 29 questions. The state part, they've got 40 questions and they're 2.5 points each, so you can miss whatever that is. I don't know. I can't figure it out in my head right now. But you can't miss as many on the state portion. How many would that be? 15, 12, 15? Would it be 15? No, can't miss 15. But anyways, they do have a different score. So you can pass the state with a 71%, the national part, and you can pass the state with 72 and a half. 10 questions?
You need to get 29 of them right.
29?
You need
So-
29 right.
So you can miss how many, Elizabeth?
11.
just 11.
40 minus 29, you can miss 11, right? Not that many. Look with me on page 655. You've got an exam outline for your state exam. And so they're breaking down each section of information and how many questions you'll have. And so that's helpful. Look with me on page 659 though, and you see North Carolina license law, 24 questions on license law when you go take this exam. That's the problem, everybody, because the Real Estate Commission writes this part of the exam and the questions are very detailed and very, I think, minute details you must know when you take the state exam. And then there's some other questions in regard to that state portion. Any questions on that? I forgot to show you something, and it was in your packet, in your left-hand side of your packet. Let's look there and see if did you get a final exam review in your left-hand side of your packet? Okay, get that out if you don't mind for a minute. That's our way to try to help you get ready for your final exam here. So what we've done is each unit where your test questions come from. So for example, your final exam here will have 112 questions. It'll be one test. But the first 79 questions are national, and the rest of the questions are state. So I broke down your outline to let you know what you need to concentrate on per unit. Guys, this would be my Bible for studying if I were you. Because literally, I'm not telling you what your questions are, but I'm telling you where to go study. So for Unit 2, for example, you've got 3 questions, and they're the 3 pointers on where to go. Unit 3, you've got 3 questions. And I even put in here what level you need to know this at. Level 2 is the bulk of the test, isn't it? And it's knowing more than the definition. And Unit 4, etc. I want you to turn over to the next page though. And you see Units 7 and 8, the back of that page. 7 and 8, didn't I tell you those are major? 13 questions out of 7 and 8. Look under there, 9 and 10. 13 questions out of 9 and 10. Guys, that's 26 questions. That's a lot. That's a lot. And they're not just what's the definition. These are scenario kinds of questions where they're testing your knowledge. If you'll go with me over a couple of more pages, you will see I guess it's page 4. You'll see at the top, math questions. Is it the back of your second page, I believe. Do you see math? 11 questions. Everybody got that? This is the back of page 2. 1, 2, yeah, back of. Guys, those are exactly the areas where you'll be asked your math. So you've got 2 commission problems, area problems, and we're going to learn the rest of this. But that's exactly what I would concentrate on. Now, I will be honest with you, we're going to talk about way more math than this, and I'm going to show you how to do it, and I'm going to send you homework about it, because you never know what you'll see at your state level, but this is where you'll be tested. Guys, this literally came from your exam as a guide to try to help you. I'm not going to, you know what? I'm not going to teach you to the test. I don't think that does you any good. I'm not going to say, here's exactly what you need to know, here's how you'll see it. I'm not going to do that. My opinion is if you understand the topic, you can figure it out. And so I'm going to teach you to understand what we're talking about instead of just memorizing it. I think it'll be better for you. And then if you go over, that same page. State section, you've got 33 questions on your final here. And look down at the bottom, Units 7 and 8, 8 questions. Guys, that's 21 questions out of Units 7 and 8. That's a lot. And then if you go to the next page, under your state section, you've got 3 questions under 9 and 10, which is about your contracts. And so, Appendix A, where we went to look at some license law, 12 questions there. You do have 1 question on square footage under Appendix B, and then you're going to have a couple of more math questions under the state section of the test. So this is just a guideline. Here's what my intention of this is. When you're reading and studying, I would have this while I'm reading, because I would write down everything I know about fixtures inside out. Everything I read about joint tenancy and what I tell you inside out. I would keep this with me as a study guide, because that's what it's meant to do. So that's to help you there, and I hope that it does. Okay. 1 or 2 more things. Go with me to the bottom of 670, and then we'll take our next break, and then we're going to get into Unit 1 lecture. There is a lot that we kind of have to get out of the way the first class, but we are going to lecture some too. Just a little things we got to do. Look at the bottom of 670. I talked to you about your new license. I talked to you about getting your pocket card. At the top of 671, I talked to you about your license being inactive and that you'll be on provisional status. Guys, this is test stuff too. because they're gonna ask you what inactive means. They're gonna ask you what provisional, what can a provisional broker do? And then, they're asking you about your license renewal, and it expires June 30th. Look right above that though, requirement for active status, and if you have a change in employment or an address. If you move your home address, or you move your real estate office or whatever, if you've got a change, the Real Estate Commission needs to be informed within 10 days in writing. So if you change companies, or if you move, you need to notify the Real Estate Commission in writing within 10 days. If you have a name change, 10 days in writing. And we talked about our renewal. Next page, they've given you information about your post-license information. So we spent a little time on that already, where we learned about our 330. Bottom of 672, post-education and continuing ed. Students do tend to get that mixed up, and they do not mean the same thing, and they do not account for each other. Like I mentioned to you, if you're waiting to take your post courses one a year, you will be taking 38 hours of education at least one of those years, and maybe 2 of those years. If you wait to get, one of your 30-hour courses, if you're just taking one a year, you'll be taking CE and post. And they don't overlap. They don't account for each other. All righty. Any questions?